If you have a strange and unexplainable experience you'd like to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to send it my way. And of course, thank you. Hi. I need to explain the backstory for the actual story to make sense. The whole event happened in 2018, but it was brought to the forefront of my mind yesterday. For my country and I, yesterday was the Day of Independence, marking 202 years. So, of course, everyone on social media posted pictures of their parades and lunch tables. Because it wasn't only Independence Day, it was also a holy day celebrating the Annunciation of Holy Mary, which means we eat fried fish and garlic-fused potato mush called scordalia. Anyway, scrolling through social media, I saw a post from a girl named Maria. As far as I remember, Maria was a friend of my childhood best friend, Polly, and I met her for the first time in 2018. From my perspective at least, not from Maria's or Polly's. In 2018, I was having severe issues with headaches and migraines, and I was on a doctor-approved diet to help my thyroid. Unfortunately, that diet harmed me rather than helped me. I ended up having several vitamins missing from my system, which triggered my headaches and migraines. Also, I started getting nosebleeds. The day that I was meant to meet up with Polly in 2018, and subsequently met Maria, was the day that my health reached its rock bottom. I was in my college's bathroom trying to freshen up before meeting them, when I fainted after a severe stabbing pain in my head. I woke up 40 minutes later, and I was 15 minutes late to meeting up with Polly. I woke up because someone had pushed the door to get in. Then I noticed that my nose had been bleeding and stained my white shirt. The person who found me was kind enough to help me clean up, and she also told me, she knew me from passing, that my eyes were unusually green. Regularly, my eye color is pine green with brown streaks emerging from the center of my eyes, and a black ring around my iris. Now the green in my eyes seemed to have swallowed the brown. Now, I know that's a sign of severe tiredness of the optical nerve. An optician told me that in 2021, and when that happens, I need to go to a dark room to calm down. I was shaking from the shock, fear, lack of food, and blood loss. I was also on my period, and losing my blood from my nose didn't help. But I didn't want to cancel on my friend whom I hadn't seen since 2013. So, I met Polly and was introduced to Maria. We sat at a coffee shop that by now had its mood lighting on, which served as a huge relief to my eyes, and it helped alleviate the pain that I was in. I also said screw the diet and decided to order a hot cocoa and a croissant. As we were chatting and reminiscing of the past, I decided to ask Polly if she remembered the time we were being chased by a cop during our friend Nikki's 13th birthday, and how our friend's stepmom covered from us. We had broken into a park that was shut down for repairs and maintenance. To that, Maria added how the cop was her uncle and recognized us all, but decided not to pursue it and let it pass since, overall, we were good kids. The moment that she mentioned us, I looked confused, saying that I didn't remember her being at our friend's birthday party. Maria insisted that she was, and described in detail for detail what I was wearing that day, and then showed pictures that she had posted on Facebook. I had apologized, saying that I might just have a bad memory of that time, hoping that I hadn't offended her. Then, the more we talked about our childhoods, the more I got shocked. She was there when Polly had her knee dislocated during our track training, and remembered how I put Polly's knee back in place and made a stint before demanding from our coach and school PE teacher to take us to the hospital. Or how she was one of the girls who found me crying and bleeding after some kids beat me up for reasons that aren't YouTube friendly. I frowned, since the last instance she described, I was by myself. And the reason I had nobody to help wipe the blood off of me was what hurt more than the beating. It was very mentally scarring, and the beginning of my hyper-independence. She is in no photos that I have from that time besides the birthday party. And as the night progressed, it was shown that she knew too much about my home life, asking about my sister and mother's health, my dad's work injury, he was shot in the leg in 2012, and my aunt's depression. Things I had only shared with Polly. At some point, Maria went to the bathroom, and I asked Polly if she ever shared what I had shared with her with Maria, and she shook her head no. She then proceeded to tell me how she was with us when I would vent about my home life, and mentioned the two memorable times. The one time Polly's mom hit her and she ran away, and we met at a nearby park. I remember it was only the two of us, but apparently Maria saw us as she returned home from English class and joined us. And then the time I was kicked out of the house for 16 hours by my mom and slept on the benches of that same park. Apparently Maria's mom saw me and told Maria, who told Polly, and both them came to find me, and they brought me food and a blanket. Then Polly's mom told my dad, who came to find me after confronting my mom. From my perspective, it was only Polly who brought me the food and the blanket, because she had called my home and my sister spilled the beans about Mom kicking me out. And then she asked of Polly to bring me food, because my sister didn't have time to steal food to put in the bag she sneakily gave me. It only had a water bottle, my teddy bear, and my wallet and a hat. In general, Maria knew stories and events that had happened in our school, too. And I don't remember her being part of our school complex. Yet she had photos. There was a photo, her favorite one, where it's me, Maria, Polly, and our friends Nikki and Angela. We're sitting on the marble ground floor staring up at the camera, squinting because the sun is blinding us, and Maria is hugging Polly and Polly is hugging me. This picture was taken by Polly's class president, Dimitri, when he had brought his camera to school and demanded to take pictures of all of us, since he was meant to be moving away after Easter. He didn't move away, to his relief. And then showed another picture where it's me, Maria, and Polly with Dimitri sitting on top of our desks, because our school and city had flooded. We were bundled up in winter coats, glaring at the camera because we were freezing, and our friend Angela had taken that picture using Nikki's Nokia camera phone. Then she showed me two pictures from my birthday. It was a weekday and our school had arranged an excursion to the beach. My birthday is in May. And the picture was of me and Maria sitting in lounge chairs. I remember that because a moment later, a kid from our class got dragged by the current while chasing his ball, and kids and people from the taverns rushed in to aid him. But I don't remember her sitting with me in those chairs, or having my picture taken. She also remembered the kid incident. The second picture was of me, Maria, Nikki, and Polly smiling to the camera as the table was filled with our food orders. Maria was hugging my shoulder while I was laughing because Polly had tickled me a second before the picture was taken. Maria then said that she wasn't sitting with us at that table, having been with her own friend group, but had come over to wish me a happy birthday and let me know that she would be an hour late to my party because her dad didn't get off work until 8 p.m. Also, her phone was used to snap the picture, and our school principal took that picture. But I do not remember that. As the night ended, we took some pictures to upload to social media. When I started the process to tag us, I asked Maria for her details. And when I typed the name on Facebook, it showed that we were already friends. We said goodbye, and as I was riding the bus home, I checked our friend history on Facebook, and we'd been friends since 2011. And she looked to be my fourth friend made since opening the account. I tried to rationalize the whole thing as memories being blocked from me due to how traumatic these 5 years on that island were. Not just for me, but for my family as a whole. That island almost destroyed my parents' marriage. My relationship with my parents has been forever damaged due to those years, and what I had to endure. It made us codependent on each other, in the most toxic way. And a decade later, we are still trying to heal from it. I truly believe I will spend the rest of my life healing and unpacking what those 5 years did to my psyche. I already didn't have a childhood, but that island, it twisted and turned me so dark. Leaving that place was one of the best things that has happened to me. Maybe that's why I don't remember Maria, or all those fun photos and times. But to forget a whole person being part of my already small friend group. I shared the incident with my sister last night, and she joked that Maria may have been part of my friend group in a parallel reality, and that she's now somehow transported to our reality with different memories. I don't know what to believe. Parallel reality, or just trauma response? Over a decade ago, I had an experience that shattered my concept of reality, haunted me, and caused years of anxiety after it occurred. Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying that I'm 19 years old, and at the time of my glitch, or crossover, as I choose to believe, I was 8, maybe 9. So, my father is an attorney, and as attorneys generally do, he worked in an office building. There was nothing overtly extravagant about it. In fact, it was a pretty mundane building. But it is important to note that it only had 4 stories, and his office was on the 4th floor. At the time, I had 2 siblings, a sister and a baby brother. It became sort of a Friday weekly ritual for my mother to pick us up from school and daycare, go to my dad's office, and then all of us would go to dinner. Which, in hindsight, didn't make much sense, as my parents had to take separate cars to the restaurant, but I digress. During that time in my childhood, I was dead set with being as independent as possible, cooking on the stove by myself, doing all of my homework without assistance, all of my laundry, etc. But there was one thing that I was particularly obsessed with doing alone, and that's using the elevator. So, one Friday afternoon, my mom picked all of us up and we went to my dad's office, as normal. I spent my time running around, annoying paralegals, office assistants, and his other colleagues. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Things only got weird when it came time to leave. My mom found me in some cubicle that I wasn't supposed to be in, and told me to get ready to go, for which I promptly bolted for the elevator. My parents knew that it was pretty much pointless to try and ride down with me, so they just told me to wait for them on the ground floor. When I stepped on, an intense feeling of dread came over me, a sort of sense of impending doom. Anxiety is not the right word for what it was, and I should mention that, at that point, I was not claustrophobic. I knew that I needed to get out, sort of like a deep urge. But before I could react, the doors closed. In a flustered state, I accidentally pressed the button for the 4th floor, the floor that I was already on, and to my confusion, instead of the doors simply reopening, the elevator started to go up and did so for what felt like 30 to 45 seconds. When the doors finally opened, what I saw petrified me. The elevator opened to what resembled the 4th floor, but pretty much everything was wrong. Glass panes that were opaque were now transparent. The tiled floor was a different material. The walls went from a grayish color to a greenish one. The entire office had a different design, and the logo with the name of my dad's law firm, which was usually all over the reception desk, was now gone. I didn't move. I just stood there scanning the environment. 5 minutes must have gone by until a vacuuming janitor noticed me. The man seemed genuine enough and approached me. He tried to question me about where my parents were and if I needed help, and all I could get out is, "I'm lost." He tried to get me to come over to the reception desk so we could call around the building to look for my parents. Just as I was about to comply, I was again overcome with that feeling of danger. This time the urge was to plant my feet like a tree, and under no circumstances leave that elevator. I told him that I was just going to go to the first floor to wait for them, and he agreed under the condition that he go with me so I wasn't alone. So he got on and pressed the button for the first floor. This time when the elevator doors opened, I saw my family. Keep in mind, this building only had one elevator, and I never left it. My mother had a stroller and therefore couldn't have used the stairs. In my numbing confusion for a 9-year-old, I just sprinted into my parents' arms and bawled my eyes out. When I calmed down, I explained what had happened as best as I could, but they looked just as perplexed as I was. I asked how they got to the first floor before me, and they replied, "What do you mean? We went down before you did." When I described the floor I was on, my dad said that it couldn't have existed as every level of the building had the same floor plan. In pure desperation for them to believe me, I pleaded them to ask the janitor who had brought me down, as he was the only person who could back me up considering he was working on that floor. And my mom's response sent a chill down my spine. "What are you talking about, kid? You were the only person on that elevator." No one on the janitorial staff fit the man's description, and I hadn't seen him since. This experience scarred me to the point that I was terrified of elevators until I was about 14. I never set foot on that particular elevator once again for the 2 following years that my dad was employed there. I wholeheartedly believe I traveled to a parallel universe, and it has forever shifted my concept of reality. I have never openly shared this story, aside from telling a couple of people that I'm closest to. Even they do not believe me. Not that they would ever say so, but when you really know someone, they don't have to. I will synopsize this by saying that I believe that for a mere 1 to 2 minutes, when I was in junior high school, I had some sort of time slip / involuntary, spontaneous warp into an alternate reality. The only difference between this one here and now, that I was able to ascertain from such a brief trip, was that in the timeline in which I found myself, I had never moved back to the southern US where I was born, and instead stayed in the Midwest in Wichita, Kansas, where my family had moved for a little over a year's time when I was aged 11. When I was in the 5th grade, my mother and stepfather separated. My mother, sister, and 2 girl cousins that lived with us at the time packed up and moved from the Bible Belt to Wichita. My older brother, who is a good bit older than I am, had met a woman online who lived there and married her. So he urged us to come to the Midwest where he had found happiness, so we did. I actually really loved it there. But just as I had started to find my stride and feel like I belonged, after about a year exactly, my mother had decided to move back to our original tiny southern town. She was having a hard time with her mental health and had reconciled with my stepfather. So, I reluctantly said goodbye to the city life that I'd grown to love, and my new friends, and picked up right where I left off with my lifelong friends at the school I had attended most of my life in my hometown. Looking back, I can see that as a defining moment to how the rest of my life was to go. If I had stayed there, I'd be a different person right now, without a doubt. But at that moment, I was still just a kid, so I didn't get too meta about it. I was sad to say bye, but happy that I didn't have to completely start over in an unfamiliar place. Now, for my time slip or warp or whatever. About a year exactly from the time that we returned to our hometown, I was in 7th grade. It was a day like any other. It was lunchtime and I stood in line with my peers, just chatting and waiting for the line to move up to get some chocolate milk from the cafeteria. I remember vividly that the boy I had a crush on my whole life was standing behind me, which was different, but not in a bad way. And we were maybe flirting, or I hoped we were. He made some playful comments to the effect of, "You're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy," which was a line that people thought was pretty clever to say for several years after I moved back from Kansas. But I smiled like it was new because crush. I had my back to the cafeteria wall and I was leaned back, propping on it, just waiting for this line to move. I had this wave of what felt a lot like vertigo. Like I was off balance and about to topple, but I wasn't at all. My ears began to ring loudly and my vision almost slowly faded into black. Like when you stand up too fast and your vision blacks out, but more slowly than that. My head was swimming for a moment and then it was foggy. When the fog lifted, my vision faded in from the blackness. My ears were still ringing somewhat, but that too was fading out and tapering off. I remember confusion and just generally not understanding what I was seeing. I was still in school, and I was still standing in line in the cafeteria with my back leaned against the wall. But I wasn't in my hometown any longer. I was in Kansas again. Next to me, and obviously having been laughing and talking with me, were 2 older girls that I remembered from my time there. They were older than I'd last seen them, though, like I was also. These girls were classmates and friendly acquaintances. They had liked my accent and loved teaching me curse words in Spanish. But when I had lived in Kansas, they were not close friends at all. However, now they were. I don't know how I knew that, but I did. These were my best friends in this reality. The reality or timeline in which I had never returned to the South or left the Midwest. I registered first the fact that I was here, in the school and city, because we had not moved back to my home state and town. And as soon as I did, it was just accepted as fact. Like, oh yeah, that's right. And it was as if everything since we had left, all the last year of events, were undone and gone from my memory. Then, I was observing my friends, and my friendship and how it grew with these girls was coming back to me, not each piece at a time, but like abstract knowledge downloading into my subconscious in large chunks of data. Because I was so discombobulated, I can't put an exact time that my consciousness slipped into this other me's reality, but I believe it was only a couple to a few minutes at best. I had not spoken a word because my brain was running processing software with all its computing power. I didn't get to the caught-up mentally place of verbal speech before the ringing in my ears and dizzy head-swimming confusion set back in. Only this time not slowly but crazy fast. I literally felt like I snapped back into this me's reality, like a rubber band. It was like the universe had noticed its mistake and snapped me back like a rubber band, correcting its errors as quickly as possible. I think the correction put me back at the same moment in time I was at before the slip, because no time seemed to have gone by for anyone else. I looked around and said, "Am I back here with y'all now?" to my crush, to which he just looked at me like I wasn't making sense, and said that the line was moving. And that was that. Has anyone experienced anything like this, or anything comparable? Did you know? Subscribing makes you 25% more amazing. Try it today. Hey Raven, I've been listening to Glitch in the Matrix stories for some time now, on multiple channels, but I've never shared my own. Until now. I feel mine is quite boring and innocuous, like many glitches are, but perhaps that's what makes them all the more unsettling. This event happened in my life a few years ago, when Omegle still existed. I was living in a redneck town where I felt very different from the norm, and I became quite lonely. I was working as a freelance marketer, so I had more time in my day than a person working a regular full-time job at the time. So, occasionally, I would grab a couple of beers and go on Omegle, which, for those who don't know, was a random webcam sharing website. It would connect you to random people anywhere in the world who also connected to the site. Anyway, I was switching through webcam footage of people, then stopped. What I saw at first looked like a strange scenario of kids, and I was a bit horrified at what I was seeing at first. But as I held off, I noticed that the person behind the camera was a woman who appeared to be their mother. I asked, "Hey, is everything okay there?" And the response I got was, yeah? I figured I stumbled upon a bored mother at home taking care of her kids. Once I realized the situation was normal and just a bored housewife with her 2 kids looking for companionship, I loosened up. I began talking to her, and her accent revealed that she was from Australia. The woman began saying things that I didn't understand at the time. She said, "Hey, I've seen you earlier." And I said, "Oh, did we skip each other here on Omegle?" And then she shook her head. No, I saw you on TikTok." I was quiet for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. I decided that I looked like someone that she saw on TikTok. It couldn't have been me. I only had a few videos uploaded and the number of views was under 1,000 for all of them. I said, "No, it probably wasn't me." And then we chatted about some things for a while. But the TikTok subject broached again after about 10 minutes. She said, "Hey, I really saw you on TikTok." I became perplexed and asked, "What do you mean? Like, how?" She said, "I even added you as a friend. Here, before we matched on Omegle." I was in disbelief. I opened my TikTok app and then asked, "Okay, if you added me before, what's your handle?" She told me her handle, and lo and behold, she liked a video I posted that had under 100 views before we met on Omegle. How could someone who lives across the world like and follow me on TikTok, and then we meet on Omegle moments later? Like, unless I don't understand how algorithms work, but I'm not totally stupid. I do work in online marketing after all. We both became so confused and talked about how strange it was. I added her back on TikTok. Like, what are the chances that someone would see my very unpopular TikTok video that had under 100 views in America, and then a person in Australia saw it and then connected with me on Omegle right after? That cannot be coincidence, right? Anyways, the next day I bought a lottery ticket because, well, what else unbelievable could happen? I had added the woman back on TikTok and messaged her saying, "Hey, that was so weird the other day that I bought a lottery ticket." And then she responded, "Huh, I did too." This was honestly the weirdest, most serendipitous experience I have ever had in my life. It happened like 5 years ago, and I still don't understand how. I asked people who worked in digital and algorithms if something like this could make sense, but I never got an answer. So, if your listeners have any idea, please have them comment and explain. Thank you, Raven. And thank you for submitting your story. And also, based on my tech experience, as far as I know, algorithms don't work cross-site, so that's crazy. Hi, Raven. I just recently found your YouTube channel. I've been an avid Glitch in the Matrix fan for many years now, so I was glad to find another narration channel to listen to. I have a few Glitch in the Matrix stories that have happened to me that I would like to share with you. Feel free to pick and choose which ones you'd like to read, if any. Thanks for your time and attention, and I hope you like the stories. Thank you. Story number 1. When I was a little kid, I used to enjoy bird watching out my kitchen window. We had a big bay window with a tree right in front of it. My parents would put up a bird feeder and we would get a lot of birds coming by to eat the bird seed. Just the normal birds like sparrows, chickadees, cardinals, every once in a while, and the occasional blue jay. We had a bird book that I would always look through. It had a big picture of the bird on one side of the page, and then on the other side it had the name of the bird, some information on it, and then at the bottom of the page there was a map of the USA with the highlighted area of where that specific bird was native to. One afternoon, I was looking through the bird book and was looking at a page with a blackbird. I can't remember the name of the bird, but it was native to the southern USA. Texas, Louisiana, that whole area. If it's native to that area, and it's a blackbird, it was probably a gray-tailed grackle. That was me saying that, that's not in the story, sorry. I grew up in New Jersey for reference. So I'm looking out the window after looking at this picture of a blackbird, and I kid you not, the exact same bird that I had just been looking at in the book flew into the tree. It stopped on a branch for a brief moment, long enough for me to realize it was the same bird that was on the page in front of me, and then flew away. According to this book, this bird was not native to New Jersey. It's totally possible that it was just some other kind of blackbird that is native to New Jersey, but I remember being so sure that it was the same bird I was looking at in my bird book. My parents, of course, did not believe me when I told them. I thought it was a weird synchronicity. Maybe a glitch in the Matrix, maybe not. But yeah, that's one of my earlier Glitch in the Matrix experiences that I can remember. Story 2. This story happened to me in early college. To make a long story short, on a Saturday night, I went to a couple house parties with one of my friends from high school. I was never a big party person in college, but I was young and trying to fit in and be cool. I ended up sleeping over at my friend's house that night. Anyways, the following day, I'm back home and spending the day with my sister. It's a low-key day. I was honestly a little hungover from the night before. We went to a cafe in our town during the day and then came back to relax. That evening, my parents and brothers went to a family friend's house for dinner, so it was just my sister and I at home. We were going to settle in and watch a movie. So I go upstairs to my room to change into comfy lounge clothes. As I'm pulling my denim shorts off, I hear some change in my pocket, which I thought was odd considering at that time, in my life, I never had cash on me. So I wouldn't have any change in my pockets for any reason, really. I dig into my pocket, and I pull out these 2 coins from this arcade/bar called Barcade. Now, I'd been wearing these same shorts the night before, but when I was at those parties, I would have noticed if someone slipped these random coins into my pocket. And who would be doing that anyways? I texted my friend a picture of the coins, and I asked if she and her family had ever been there. Maybe somehow they'd come from her house since I'd spent the night there. She said she'd never heard of the place. I start freaking out a little bit because I cannot explain this, and I go back downstairs and sat in our kitchen, texting my mom about what happened. It was late summer at the time, so we had the windows open in our house, and we live in the suburbs, so there's always people walking down our street and cars going by that we can hear. I remember sitting at our kitchen island, still freaking out about these weird coins, and I hear car doors slamming outside. I hear my dad's voice call out my name, "Charlotte." I thought, great, my parents are home. I wait for them to come inside, but they never do. I text my mom asking where they're at, and she says they're still at the dinner table at their friend's house. This honestly sent me over the edge a little bit, and she said they were about to leave to come home. And that's basically the end of that story. My parents eventually came home and just laughed at me. I still to this day cannot explain where those coins came from and how they ended up in my pocket. Nor can I explain hearing my dad's voice call out my name. Could it have been someone else walking past my house who knew me? Sure, but I feel like that's unlikely. I was so sure that it was my dad's voice. It definitely was one of the most unexplainable experiences in my lifetime. Story number 3. This is a short little story that also happened to me in college. I was hanging out with a friend in her dorm room one afternoon after we both got out of classes. I think I was sitting at her desk doing some homework assignment, and she was sitting in her bed. It was sunset, so the sky looked really pretty outside her window. We're looking out, and I see a plane taking off in the distance from our city's airport. I mention it, and she says something to the effect of, "Yeah, it's cute sometimes. I just lay in bed and watch the planes take off." Flash forward, probably a few weeks, and we're sitting in a nearby park at night, and I see a plane in the sky and mention our conversation from a few weeks prior. She says, "What? I never said that." I'm confused because I specifically remember the conversation we had, but she's adamant that she never said that. That she has never watched planes taking off out her window. I ended up just dropping the topic, but I just thought it was so bizarre. Was I misremembering? Possibly, but I remember so clearly looking at the pretty sunset, and the colors in the sky and the plane taking off in the distance. I was convinced at the time that we must have just slipped into a parallel dimension. Maybe this is completely explainable and just boils down to poor memory, but I don't know. Thank you for your time, Raven, and I hope that you enjoyed. Hi, Raven. Big fan here. I've been a listener for a while now and have always been fascinated by the Glitch in the Matrix stories, but never believed it's to happen to me. Until today. To start, I was home alone doing household things like tidying up my room, doing laundry, etc. I have a pair of shoes that I've been meaning to clean. I decided to wash those up, and because I'm impatient, I went ahead and threw them into the dryer. No big deal. I've done this countless times. Well, after doing that, I went to my kitchen and began preparing something to eat. And that took me about 20 minutes. The dryer was still running just fine. I then went to sit at my kitchen table at a spot where I'm facing away from the laundry area, so it's to my back. I'm enjoying my food and watching YouTube, and suddenly, my dryer blares this annoying beeping noise. I ignore it, thinking that it may have just overheated and shut off, and this is normal. So I take a few bites and get up to go see what the issue is. As I'm walking over, I notice that one of my shoes is now sitting in front of my dryer on its side, while the other one is inside. You may be thinking I must have accidentally dropped it before shutting the dryer door and not realized it. But no. As I picked the shoe up, it was really hot, meaning it was definitely in that dryer because I washed them with cold water, which further proves this claim. I went ahead and grabbed the shoe that was in the dryer, and guess what? They both had the exact same temperature. Mind you, the dryer door was not open when I walked up. It was shut, as I left it earlier. I thought to myself, how weird, and then proceeded to just throw them back in and turn the dryer on. I then texted my boyfriend about it, who is also an avid listener of your podcast. We exchanged our how weirds and it's a glitches, and I carried on with my meal. I finish up, and I turn around to stare at my dryer, still feeling uneasy. I step a bit closer as I need to get to my kitchen. The kitchen is between my table and the laundry area. But to my horror, in real time, I see the shoe somehow appear outside of the dryer. And then, about 2 seconds later, the dryer door opens, as if someone grabbed the shoe out, but the order was backwards. By now, I'm internally freaking out and texting my boyfriend some more. I then rush over to grab my shoes and place them on top of the dryer to air dry instead. And to mention now, after experiencing this, I feel extremely lightheaded and dizzy. I guess the universe just had a problem with me drying my shoes faster. So that, my friends, was this week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories. Some good ones this week, some that probably would have done well in a parallel universe video like I did a couple weeks ago. I had to think about what day it was. It is the 8th of April already, holy crap. Yeah. Definitely some interesting stories, as always. Hopefully you all enjoyed them. And it's, it's not really a special glitch video, but it's a special day, right? It's the partial to complete solar eclipse here in the US. By the time this video goes up, it'll already be over. But around 1:40 something? 1:54. I paused to check. We will be at around 89.7% totality here in Kansas, so that's fun. Be an interesting day. The one in 2017 that occurred would have been nice, but it was cloudy as hell, so couldn't see a thing. Good times. Yeah. Hopefully you all enjoyed the eclipse if you were able to look at it today to watch it. Hopefully you all wore your glasses, because going blind by staring at the sun is not a smart thing to do, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed these stories. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing, as I do these stories weekly and other stories throughout the week. Typically Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Sometimes I add extra ones in just for the fun of it, or because I feel like doing extra stuff. That's just who I am. The other thing you can do is join my Patreon or membership to get early access to content like this for as little as $1 a month. It also helps the channel tremendously. Also, sorry, this is something I actually wanted to mention. We hit 30,000 subs today. I posted it on Twitter. We hit 30,003 subs this morning whenever I checked. So, that's awesome. That's another milestone. We're about a third of the way to getting that beautiful silver play button, which I think is my end goal. Once that happens, I'll just delete the channel and all my content. I'm joking, I would never do that. And I realize now that joke may have been in poor taste because a certain channel did do that, so I apologize for that, but not really. I do and I don't, you know what I mean? Whatever. Anyways, 30,000 is a huge number, so thank you to all of you who listened to my videos and caught me there. You're amazing. You make this all worth it. And without you guys, I wouldn't be doing this full time, so. You can also do a super thanks to the channel, which is just a tip to say thank you. It just helps my, my monetization, my income for the month, and it's greatly appreciated. Yeah. You can also do what we call the Word of the Week, which is something we do every Monday. Now, on the screen right now is a screenshot of everyone who used last week's Word of the Week in a sentence. Correction, 2 weeks ago's Word of the Week in a sentence. Last week's video was a strange one. It was not a glitch video, but it did have something special for those of you who did not watch it. Just FYI. Anyways, 2 weeks ago, we did the last Word of the Week, and a good number of you on the screen now, and several months prior to now, left me the Word of the Week in a sentence. And those screenshots are now on the screen for me to shout out to everybody who did that and say thank you so very much to everyone who did. Don't know what I'm saying here. Just going. Just go with it. Just go with it. Anyways, thank you to all of you who left me last week's word. 2 weeks ago's Word of the Week. Y'all are amazing. Let's move forward before I lose my mind. And this week's Word of the Week is one you've probably heard quite a bit, which is eclipsed. I went with eclipsed, the past tense, but I will also accept eclipse, the present tense. But eclipsed means the total or partial obscuring of one celestial body by another, or the falling into obscurity or decline. Yeah. It's not hard to figure out how to use Eclipse without talking about the actual eclipse. So let's see if you guys can do that. Of course, if you just talk about the actual eclipse, it's fine too. I don't pick and choose. So, well, that's it, friends. Hope you're having a beautiful day. Hope I do see you again here very soon. But until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.